Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Sean Arnold and I'm back with another episode for Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist Online Ranked. I'm going to get to the duel in just a minute, but I want to talk about how I'm going to be doing in this episode and the next coming episodes. Couple of episodes, I would say so. I'm not quite sure just yet. How they're going to be a little bit different from what I've done before. I realized that I've never really just gone through or explained how I go through the process of improving a deck to a point where I get it to a quality where I think it's okay to show off on YouTube. And I kind of just wanted to go through that, starting with a base deck and then showing the steps I take to improve it, and then kind of find a cutting point to say this is where I'm happy with it and I'm going to stop there. I decided to use a new archetype for this. I'm using the Archfiend archetype, and I'm going to introduce these guys to you first. Let me just search them there. These are the Archfiends. Now there are a whole bunch of Archfiend cards. There are Archfiends with Archfiend in their names and Archfiends with that don't have Archfiend in their name. That is because it's due to translation errors. But these cards had Archfiend in their name in Japan, but when they came over to everywhere else in the world, they weren't translated correctly. So you get cards like Beast of Tower or Summon Skull, and they will have a little bit of a subtext at the bottom of the card that says this card is always treated as an Archfiend card. It's important to keep that in mind for a deck like this, because there are tons of cards, spell and trap cards, which are Archfiend cards but don't have Archfiend in their name. So I wanted to use Archfiends for this because Archfiends, at least I couldn't find one. Archfiends don't have a deck recipe in this game, and which means I couldn't actually farm them and get a rough idea of what an Archfiend deck should look like. So I kind of abandoned the idea when I first thought of it, but then I decided to go back to it recently. What I decided to do instead is I went to my web browser and I searched into Google Archfiend deck 2015, and these are the results which I found. I look at the first video here, which is a deck by Anthony Ellenburg, and I checked out his Archfiend deck for January 2015, which is great because that's the format Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist follows. And this is his deck recreated into Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist. For the most part, it is one or two. I think I'm missing one copy of Battle Fader. I think he runs 41 cards, but other than that, this is mostly what his deck is, and the extra deck I've just kind of improvised myself. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just show how I will use Anthony's deck in a duel, and then I'm going to say how I'm going to improve upon it and then change it towards my own kind of likings and my own style. And guys, feel free to do the same yourself. A lot of people feel kind of on the fence. They don't like copying other people's decks, and that's fine. You got your pride, that's okay. But it's also important to take or to recognize what other people are doing, and also feel free to try it out yourself. So I'm going to try out Anthony's deck, and then I'm going to just say what works well for me and what doesn't work well for me. But first of all, let me introduce this deck to you and tell you a little bit more about how it works. The main Archfiend card is Archfiend Heiress. Archfiend Heiress is a phenomenal Archfiend card. It is the searcher of the deck. The way it works is that when it is sent to the graveyard because of a card effect or being destroyed by battle, you can add one Archfiend card from your deck to your hand except Archfiend Heiress, and you can only use this effect once per turn. Now, Archfiend Heiress can specify any Archfiend card from your deck to your hand, not just monsters, but also spells and traps. So cards like their field spell Archfiend Palabrative or Archfiend's Roar can also be searched out using Archfiend's Heiress. It's a really great searcher out card, and being that it's a level 3 feed, it can also be searched out by Tour Guide from the Underworld. Great synergy there. You really want to get Tour Guide out in your first turn. Bring out Archfiend Heiress. Now the great thing about Archfiend Heiress also is that the way its text is written. The text is written as, if this card is sent to the graveyard because of a card effect. This means you can use Archfiend Heiress as an XZ material for monsters such as number 49 Fortune Tune or Wind Up Zen Maids, and then when their effect goes off and they detach, the detaching part is part of the effect. It's not the cost to pay the effect, it's actually part of the effect, and because it's part of the effect, Archfiend Heiress will go off. So what I would often do on my first turn is I would summon Tour Guide, bring out Archfiend Heiress, and bring out Wind Up Zen Maids. Fortune Tune is interesting. I've never actually used it, and but Anthony kind of recommended it, said it works really well in this deck, but I've never really tried it. I've always gone for Zen Maids because of the stats and for the effect. But the way Fortune Tomb works is each of your standby phases you get 500 life points. It can't be targeted by effects, and if it's going to be destroyed, you can attach to protect it. And then when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target 2 level 3 monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them back into your deck, and if you do, return this card from your graveyard to your deck. It's got a great recycling effect, but I always go into Zenbei's because it's very much the same kind of effect, except that he gets to destroy a card for free every time he detaches at the end of the turn. Okay, so we also got 2 copies of Archfiend Cavalry here. Archfiend Cavalry is a beatstick. He's a 1900 level 4 monster, and when he is destroyed, he gets to special summon 1 Archfiend monster from your graveyard. That can be by, he has to be destroyed by a card effect for this to work, and that's going to bring some synergy later on, but it gives you a free special summon if he is destroyed, but that card cannot attack this turn. Then we got Masked Chameleon. Apparently Masked Chameleon is popular in Archfiend decks because what Masked Chameleon does is when he is normal summoned, you can special summon 1 monster with 0 defense from your graveyard to your field, and then you can use him as a tuner in order to go into a synchro monster. So you can get back Archfiend Ares, who has 0 defense, or Archfiend Cavalry, who has 0 defense, and bring them up and go straight into a level 7 or a level 8 tuner. And we've got cards like Black Rose Dragon here, or Chaos King Archfiend, Scrap Archfiend, Red Dragon Archfiend, and Stardust Dragon here, which are all good examples or things that you can go into. Anthony didn't specify any cards particularly on what he likes to go into, but I'm just trying those out and going to see what works. Battle Fader also works well with Masked Chameleon, which is why I have level 5 ones here as well. Although I only have the 1 copy of Battle Fader, I do need to get another copy, and I might have to do that for a future build of this deck, but we'll see. Then we got 2 copies of Lesser Fiend. Lesser Fiend is a level 5 Archfiend, and apparently he's really good because any monster that's destroyed by battle with him gets banished. Apparently that works really well against cards like Shadows and other cards which trigger when sent to the graveyard, so apparently he's a good anti-meta adept card there. Then you've got Archfiend Commander. Archfiend Commander, if you control an Archfiend card, you can special summon this from your hand, but it cannot attack this turn. And if it is special summoned this way, you have to target 1 Archfiend card on your field and destroy it. So ideally, you want to bring out Commander and special summon him for free when you have Archfiend Cavalry on the field or Archfiend Ares. Then you can destroy them, trigger their effects, and if you destroy monster with Cavalry, so if you destroy Cavalry, he can bring back another Archfiend from your graveyard. And last but not least, you've got Archfiend Emperor, the first Lord of Horror, a really good solid level 8 monster. He can be normal summoned without a tribute, but his original attack and defense is half, so he comes out with 1500 attack and 1000 defense. And he also has an effect where you can banish 1 Archfiend card from your hand or graveyard to destroy 1 target on the field. Now, what's really great about Archfiend Emperor is that it's an Archfiend card, not an Archfiend monster, which means you can banish things like Archfiend Roar from your graveyard, Archfiend Palabyrinth when they've been destroyed, and you can basically destroy a monster using those types of cards as well, which are the ideal targets because you're not going to recover those. Speaking of which, Archfiend Palabyrinth is a field spell. It has 2 effects. 1, it gives all your fiend monsters 500 attack, and its other effect is, it's kind of complicated. You're going to have 2 monsters on the field, 1 Archfiend monster and at least 1 other fiend type monster. You can target 1 Archfiend monster on the field, then banish the other fiend type monster, and that will let you special summon another Archfiend monster with the same level as the one you picked. So if I say I have Emperor and Commander on the field, I could use Labyrinth to target Emperor, banish Commander, and bring out another Emperor at 3000 attack. It's a little bit complicated and it is a little bit slow, but it can be kind of useful. I've used it maybe once or twice, but we'll see how it goes. 2 copies of Dark Hole. Anthony put those in because he says that he doesn't care about destroying his monsters. He likes to trigger off Ares and Cavalry, so he's got 2 copies of Dark Hole. Now, another one of the best cards in this deck is Falling Down. This is one of the reasons why I really wanted to run this deck. Falling Down is basically Snatch Steal. It's Snatch Steal. So in this deck, I have 4 copies of Snatch Steal. That is insane. That is absolutely huge. And this is why I think this deck has so much potential and can actually really compete at a high level if it's built correctly. The way Falling Down works is you have to have an Archfiend card on the field in order to use it. otherwise it's destroyed. So you got to be kind of careful with that. You don't want to say have a monster on the field and have your monster destroyed and lose falling down, so they get back their monster at the same time as a 2-for-1. You gotta be careful with the way you use it, but falling down is a really powerful card when used correctly. To support that, Anthony also has 1 copy of Hidden Armory in his deck in order to search that out along with Snatch Steel as well. And you really want to try to make use of the monsters that you have with falling down, that you take with falling down as soon as possible in case it gets destroyed. So there are lots of tribute monsters in the deck, so you can tribute them off, but there's also 2 copies of the Monarch Stormforth. Another thing which I really liked about this deck, and I really like the Monarch Stormforth. I think it's super strong. I think it's almost kind of nearing the edge of broken, and I've really been trying to figure out a way to use Stormforth without using it in a Monarch's deck. And there aren't too many decks which rely on tribute summons, but this one has a ton of monsters which are high level, so using Stormforth plus falling down should give me enough fodder to bring out these monsters quite easily. Foolish Burial is in here mainly to target Eris. Eris gets works out of being targeted by Foolish Burial, so if you send her to the graveyard, her effect will get triggered, and therefore you can search out any Archfiend card from your deck. Keep in mind that Falling Down is not an Archfiend card. If it would, then its effect would be useless, so you can't search that out. 2 copies of MST, 1 copy of Raigeki. I don't actually think Raigeki is supposed to be in here. I think I don't think he had that in his original build. I think I made that's a change I did later on. I think he had 3 copies of Emperor and 2 copies of Dark Card. I don't think he had Raigeki. Because he likes his monsters to be destroyed, Supply Squad becomes useful here. When a monster is destroyed once per turn, you can draw 1 card, and he's got 3 copies of those. 2 copies of Archfiend Raw. This is basically a Call of the Haunted for Archfiends. However, the monster, it costs 500 life points to use. It's not a continuous trap, but that Archfiend monster will be destroyed. So unless you're gonna tribute that monster off, actually, you know, you can't even tribute the monster off. Unless you're going to, you ideally want to go into something like Eris, or something that can be used as a synchro material, or something which you just want to push to win the game with. Archfiend Raw can be useful for that. 2 copies of Call of the Haunted in order to bring back these high level monsters here, and those work really well. Or you can chain it, and then I think it might work if you chain it to something. No, it probably doesn't work. You probably miss the time in there. And then you've got Torrential Tribute again, another field clearing effect, which really doesn't hurt your deck too much. So there's a lot of appeal to this deck here. I'm going to now go over to a Duel, and I'm going to commentate over that, and let's see how this deck runs. Okay, so here we are in a Duel. I am doing a voiceover for this one. This was recorded earlier, and I just realized I got to turn the volume down over there. I'm playing against Resistance _34, who I'm going to guess is running a Amazonist deck, because they have Amazonist Tanya as their deck avatar. So to start off this Duel, I've put down a copy of Archfiend Eris, face down in defense position. Hopefully my opponent will destroy her next turn. And I've also put down Supply Squad. In case she gets destroyed, it will let me draw a card as well. Gonna wait for Resistance here to make a move. You really want to have Eris go off as soon as possible in order to start searching out your key cards. Although at this point I wasn't really too sure of what cards are best to search out early in the Duel. And I remember in Anthony Ellenburg's deck profile video, he recommended searching out Commander, but we'll see what I do here next. My opponent, I'm assuming here, is quite new because they're using Ground Collapse. That's a really interesting card. It means when it's played, you choose up to 2 monster zones, and those 2 monster zones can't be used. Maybe he's put that on the field in order to stop people from swarming. I think with multiple copies of this card, it can work. I've seen Ground Collapse work in Ojama decks, where they clog up your field so you can't summon anything. But it's a bit of a niche card, and I don't know how much it's going to really hurt me here. So Amazonist Sword Runner is going to attack Archfiend Eris, and Archfiend Eris is going to get destroyed. By being sent to the graveyard, I'm going to be able to trigger off Supply Squad and Archfiend Eris' effect. Archfiend Eris will resolve first, and then Supply Squad. So first I will be able to search out a card. Now I'm going to have to decide here, what am I going to choose and what am I going to bring out. I have Lesser Fiend in my hand. I really need a way to bring him out so he's not stuck in my hand. So we'll find out what I'm going to choose here soon. I don't think I'm really too sure at this point, and I'm considering to bring out Cavalry, and that's what I'm going to bring out here. The fact that I have Falling Down and Snatch Steal in my hand means I'm in a really good position to take my opponent's monsters, but I do need an Archfiend card up on the field. It looks like I really want to use Falling Down quite urgently. Again, just to reiterate what I said earlier, I think this deck has a lot of potential. I think by being able to consistently use Falling Down alone will make this deck quite powerful. I think this deck can actually go many different ways, and I'll talk about the ways which I've discovered to improve it at the end of this duel. But first of all, I am deciding what to do next and waiting for my opponent to respond. And I don't know why I'm stuck here just thinking about the standby phase. I should just skip this really. And yeah, there we go. We're going to move on towards the main phase. Now, several options here. I could use Stormforth to tribute his monster, but it doesn't look like I'm going to do that. I'm going to summon Archfiend, Cavalry, and then I believe I'm going to take his monster with either Snatch or Falling Down. Taking your opponent's monster was a really powerful tool way back when you could run copies of Snatch Steal and Change of Heart in your deck. And Konami were quickly to ban that, or sorry, Upper Deck were quickly to ban that, and it's never really come back. But Falling Down has always been around for a long time, but people haven't really invested into it because Archfiends have never really been the strongest archetype. The first set of true Archfiend cards that came out that were all associated with chess pieces, those ones weren't really the best of monsters, and they didn't stay on the field long enough, so you would often lose from that Falling Down. But I think now is the time to bring it back. So I've taken out Amazon Swordswoman because I can't attack this turn due to my opponent's threatening roar. I'm just going to use Falling Down to use Swordswoman to XE summon, and now I'm going to use Castell, I believe. But unfortunately I'm going to lose it thanks to Torrential Tribute. Now unfortunately, while Cavalry or Ares is attached to an XE monster, they can't get their effects off, so they have to be on the field if they get destroyed by things like Torrential Tribute. So unfortunately I won't get Cavalry's effect there. So it was a good play by Resistance to do that then and not earlier on. Okay, so Amazon's Chain Master is now going to come out, another 1500 monster. Gonna be able to put my life points, nothing I'm going to be able to do about that. But I'm in a very good position. I have 2 cards over my opponent in terms of card advantage, and technically Ground Collapse isn't really going to do a whole lot for my opponent, so you might as well ignore that card. So I'm really at 4 cards ahead of my opponent, which is always good in this game. It's always good to have card advantage over your opponent. Now I think I need to get out Lesser Fiend. He's been stuck in my hand for a while, so I'm going to play the Monarch Stormforth, which is going to let me tribute my opponent's monster for Lesser Fiend. Now it wasn't in this duel necessarily, but in later duels where I practiced without that you're not going to see, there are a lot of cards in this deck which prevent you from summoning in one way or another, and I didn't realise that until I really tried the deck out. Monarch Stormforth stops you from special summoning from your extra deck. Hidden Armory stops you from normal summoning or setting for that turn. Some of the Archfiend cards, I think, let me have a look at my list here. If you bring out Archfiend Commander, you can't special summon, is it Archfiend Commander? No, if you bring out Archfiend Emperor, it stops you from special summoning any monsters except Fiend type monsters, which means you can't XE summon. Because none of my XEs are Fiend types, they're mostly other types. There's a lot of summon restrictions here, and I actually didn't really like it, and that's something which I'm going to change about this deck. I'm going to take out a few cards which stop me from pushing for big plays by restricting my summons, and that's something I'm going to change. Like when you use Mask Chameleon, this Mask Chameleon says you cannot special summon any other monsters except from the extra deck during this turn. So lots and lots of summon restrictions. It's really quite frustrating. And there's one example right there. I didn't realize that I couldn't normal summon. What happened there? I can't quite remember why. Oh no, I think that was just a mistake. I accidentally set Chameleon, or did I set Chameleon by mistake? No, I know what it was. No, I can't even remember. Sorry guys, I wasn't paying attention to the screen right there. But for some reason I couldn't use Chameleon this turn. But I've taken up my opponent's Amazon Swordswoman, and I'm going to attack with that and Lesser Fiend. Thanks to Palabyrinth, Lesser Fiend's got an extra an extra 500 attack, so he's now 2600. Really powerful card. I like Labyrinth with cards like Cavalry because he comes out as a 2400 beta. Also, it makes cards like Archfiend Commander into 3000 attacking monsters, or even if I can get out Emperor somehow, it will make him 3500. Snatch Deal will give my opponent 1000 life points, but I get to keep on their monster, and I should be able to push for the game here unless my opponent has a field clearing card like Dark Hole or Raigeki at this point, but we will see. The deck works really well together. There's a lot of synergy in this deck. I really enjoy how well the cards work together, but there's a lot that can be done to fine tune this deck, and that can be done to improve upon it. And I'll show you those probably tomorrow in the next episode, but we will see. As I get to that point, I'll let you know. Yeah, I mean, there are many ways which I could run it. I have ideas of maybe running this more like a Monarch deck, because one thing I noticed about this deck, and that you might have seen, is that this deck is quite low in terms of defense. It doesn't have a lot of back row cards to protect my monsters, so it isn't really best suited for slower plays. It likes to make big pushes and make sure I clear my opponent's back row at the same time, so I can't be stopped when I make those big pushes, but it doesn't have a lot of defense. And so it's probably easy to find with this deck that if you kind of get overpowered by your opponent, you're kind of going to stay overpowered because you get no real big comeback mechanics in this deck. So I could change the deck to include more cards like Vanity's Emptiness or Fiendish Chain, all those good back row cards which stun my opponent for a turn or so. That could work well in this deck. But what could also work well in this deck is Skill Drain, because there are so many high level monsters. Most of the monsters aren't really hurt by Skill Drain. In fact, the only monster in this deck which is really hurt by Skill Drain will be my XE summons like Zen Mains or Fortune Tune, which won't be able to get off their effects because they'll be negated by Skill Drain, which means they won't be able, which Ares won't be able to be triggered if I was to XE summon them out. However, I think maybe Skill Drain might be the best way to go with this deck, although actually it would also affect Tour Guide of the Underworld. Okay, so I made a quick cut forward. I've been able to capitalize on my opponent a bit more. My opponent only has 200 life points left. I'm going to use Tour Guide from the Underworld to bring out Ares. Unfortunately, I don't have Cowboy in the deck right now. Maybe I'll have to add him in later, and I don't know if there's any other cards which are level 3, rank 3, sorry, that can burn an opponent's life points, so I don't really have anything for that option. I'm going to bring out Fortune Tune. Let's try that out. Fortune Tune is a really solid card. It works well, as I said earlier in the deck profile. If it detaches for its effect, Ares will get her effect. But the only thing which I find a downside about Zen Mains and Fortune Tune is that you can't detach on demand for the effects. You have to wait until your opponent does something and react to it, which can be a bit of a negative if my opponent knows how to get around Fortune Tune or get around Zen Mains. I've been in a duel where my opponents use compulsory evacuation on my XE monsters, which has been a bit of unfortunate. But let's see what my opponent does here. It looks like my opponent's going to attack, and he's going to attack Fortune Tune. And yes, I'm going to use the effect here, and by doing so, I'm going to be able to detach Ares. And because it was attached by part of the effect, I'm now going to get Ares' effect and be able to search out an Archfiend card. A really cool little combination here that works really well. Now I'm not really too sure what card to search out here, so I'm going to get out Commander, and he's really easy to summon, although he does destroy a monster when he does come out, so you've got to be careful with him. And yeah, I think my opponent's not going to be able to do anything for the rest of this turn, so he's going to end. Okay, now the Ground Collapse is actually getting in the way a bit. I wish I could summon, say, Masked Chameleon first, but then I wouldn't be able to actually summon that Commander. So I'm going to use the Monarch Stormforth, this is why I like Commander in this deck. He's really easy to special summon, but if I don't want to, I can use him with Falling Down or Stormforth in order to get rid of my opponent's cards at the same time. The deck really, it has a lot of synergy in this deck. A lot of the trippy monsters don't stay in your hand if you don't want them to, and you can get rid of them quite easily. Ah, but I made a mistake here. Yeah, I kind of botched this move. I was supposed to tribute summon, but I actually chose special summon. So I did have to destroy the card in the end. But whatever, it shouldn't really matter too much. I should be able to attack my opponent here. And hopefully their back row card can't do anything. And it doesn't. So guys, that's going to end this duel for today. Sorry for not doing so great on the commentary. I think I'm a bit rusty, but hopefully this has been a bit more interesting into the way I build my decks. Tomorrow I'm going to make some changes to the deck. I'm going to show those to you, and I'm going to show it off in another duel, and then I'm going to keep on doing that for pretty much the next couple of days until I get to a build which I'm really happy with. It's good to be back, and it's good to see people are still playing this game. So until next time, take care of yourself.